I want to tell you a little bit about my story that he didn't tell. I mean, he told some of the key parts, and I promise I'm not going to go very long on this. And I'm going to try to honor your time today so that you can get to brunch or lunch with your dad if you want to do that. But I've been in full-time ministry. My name's Jeremy Brock. My wife, Kayla, and I, we've been married 10 years. We celebrated 10 years of marriage about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I've been in full-time ministry almost 15 years. And as a quick side note, something that's kind of funny that I realized today, there's actually somebody here visiting from Arkansas, Pam Teague, and her daughter Victoria, who was about this big whenever I started in ministry. She was at the church that I started at, almost 15 years ago. So she was there when I started in ministry, and she can tell you ugly, terrible stories about what a horrible person I was. Probably still am, but hey, you guys don't know me yet, so I'm a great person, trust me. No, she was there for that. She was there for my wedding, and you're here for the first time I'm speaking at Activate. It's kind of funny, but anyways, I've been in ministry for about 15 years now, and we can be honest with each other here, and we can be open with each other. So I'm going to do that today a little bit. I'm going to tell you, I'm a restless person, and that can be good, and that can be bad. And I'm fidgety, I can't sit still, I'm always uncomfortable, and that's kind of in the small scale. But on a big scale, what that can lead to is, man, I'm always looking for some new adventure. I'm always looking for some new thing to do, some new place to go. So what started out in ministry 15 years ago as a worship leader in Arkansas, a small town Arkansas boy, who the biggest city he had ever been to was Tulsa, Oklahoma, to seeing where God has taken me. And from there to Oklahoma, from Oklahoma to California. From California about 2.5 years ago, on a whim, I decided that God was calling me to New York City. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't, because I want to be really clear. I had an incredible time in New York. I'm very appreciative for the opportunity that I got there, the people that I met, the lives that were changed. New York was an incredible experience, but to think of this small town Arkansas boy landing and being a campus pastor at a church on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, I never in a million years would have thought that happened, but this wild heart that I have, always wanting to experience these new adventures, led me there. But I want to tell you this, and I mean this genuinely, this really comes from my heart. There was something always about, not just Huntington Beach, but about Jeremy and Janie. Like he said, we've known each other over 10 years now. I met them, honestly, at my wedding. Like, he came to my wedding. It was the first time he had just moved to town. Janie was like, why do I have to go to a wedding of this person I don't know? And she's hated me ever since then. No, but that's how I met them. But it's gone, like, our relationship is beyond just a friendship. There is something, he hates it when people talk about him and people give him praise, so I'm going to do it to make him uncomfortable. I got to go to the bathroom. Out of everybody I've ever known in my life, in 15 years of ministry, I've never had someone who models what it means to be a follower of Christ the way that you see in the Bible as this guy right here. He's shown love and compassion when I didn't deserve it, when I didn't, there was nothing about me that merited how he treated me. And he became like family to me. And I came out to Huntington Beach 5 years ago to help be a part of Activate. But my restless heart kicked in, and I decided that I needed to go try something else. And, that was hard. That wasn't easy. But he loved me as if nothing had ever happened. Then I go to New York. And when I left to New York 2.5 years ago, there was something on the inside of my heart that said, you're going to be back here. You're not just going to be back in Huntington Beach. You're going to be back at Activate Church. Because ultimately, this is where I want you for your life. God loves us enough that he lets us go off on these adventures. So, hey, you went to New York on vacation. You got the bright lights in your eyes. Go enjoy that for a little bit. But I'm telling you, I'm going to bring you back here. So we came back about a year ago and visited, and at that point it solidified in our heart, hey, this is home. And when I say home, I mean from someone for the last 15 years who has moved around every 2 or 3 years. This is where we're going to plant roots. This is where we want to adopt a kid and raise a family, and this is where we want to be. And I don't just mean Huntington Beach. I mean here at Activate Church. And you want to know why that is? It's because of the compassion and the love of Jesus that was modeled by you. So thank you so much for who you are to me. And that's actually what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the power of compassion. Because compassion, the love of Jesus, it is the most powerful thing that exists in our world. And to kind of help set this up, I want to go to a parable. It comes from Matthew 25, where Jesus, he's actually teaching the importance of showing compassion. And here's what he says. It says, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me.' Then these righteous ones will reply, 'Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or feed you, or thirsty or give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison?' And here's what Jesus says. He says, 'And the king will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me.'" So in this parable, Jesus is teaching the importance of showing compassion to people, showing love to people, showing acceptance to people, the least of these, the people who may not be easiest to show it to, the people who may not deserve it. He is saying when you serve them, when you love them, when you show them compassion, it's as if you were doing it to me. And I can stand here and tell you, as someone who was here in the beginning 5 years ago, as someone who's coming back now, that's what this church is all about. And when I say this church, I don't mean this organization, this nonprofit. I mean each and every one of you who are a part of this movement of God. That's what we are called to be about. We're called to show that compassion to others. We're called to live that lifestyle. And that's what I want to be clear about. Oftentimes we kind of think, oh, I'm compassionate. I went and I served on our serve day on the 5th Sunday. Or, I went to the homeless shelter twice this year. That's compassionate. No, compassion is not a one-time event. Compassion is a lifestyle that we are called to live. It's who we are called to be. It's to come out of every aspect of our lives. But it's not always easy to do that. It's easier said than done. How many of you in here have had someone show compassion to you at one point or another, when you say, you know what, they showed me compassion, they showed me love, and I didn't deserve it? We like that. We love the way that feels, but it's not always easy for us to do that to other people. People who hurt us, people who turn their back on us, people who are just so difficult to be around. We don't always want to show that compassion to them, but I want you to know this. If you call yourself a follower of Jesus, do you know what you are called to do? Follow Jesus. You can't call yourself a follower of him if you aren't doing what he tells you to do. If you aren't following in his footsteps. And what does Jesus say in that parable in Matthew 25? He says this: if you are going to live a life of compassion and serve others, it's as if you were serving me. It's as if you were truly following me and doing what I am commanding you to do. So compassion is the most powerful thing that we can do. And now I want to let you guys know, as we get in today and look at how we can live this out in our lives, how we can recognize needs around us, how we can begin to meet those needs. I am telling this to myself first. This is not Jeremy standing on stage telling you how you need to be a better follower of Jesus while I do nothing. This is a challenge to me because this doesn't come easy to me. Like I said, there are people in this room, Pam Teague included, who was there from the get-go, who can tell you, I have not always lived this out. I've been the opposite of this. I've struggled with this. I continue to struggle with this. But I'm telling you, I want to show you how Jesus models this, how we're to live it. And I believe that when we do that, there is nothing in this world that we can't accomplish. Lives can be changed when you truly show people the compassion and love of Jesus Christ. So how do we do that? How do we live lives of compassion? Well, the good news is this. God's not going to ask us to do this if he hasn't already showed it to us first, if he hasn't already modeled it for us. So I think the good first step in living a life of compassion is simply centering your life and remembering the compassion that God has showed to you. God shows you compassion each and every day of your life. He shows you love. He shows you grace. He shows you forgiveness. In fact, there has been no greater act of compassion and love in this world than what God shows to us. want you to see what the psalmist says in Psalm 145. He says, "The Lord is merciful and compassionate, slow to get angry, and filled with unfailing love." Now notice what this verse doesn't say. It doesn't say that the Lord is sometimes compassionate, but he's pretty quick to get angry, so don't make him mad or he's going to get you. No. He's slow to anger. He's merciful. He's compassionate, even when you don't deserve it. And I want you to know this, and there's some people in this room that you need to not only hear this, but you need to let this sink in. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what you are going to do. No matter how big it is, no matter how small it is, there is nothing that you can ever do that is going to cause God to love you any less than he already does. There is nothing that you can do that is going to cause God to stop showing you compassion. There is nothing that you can do that is going to make God say, "You know what? I know my word says that, but forget that. You've really ticked me off. So now I am so angry with you that I'm just going to come on you with fire and brimstone." No, God doesn't work like that. He loves you. And you know, it's hard for us to accept that. And you know why it is? Because it's so counterculture of how we are as humans. We don't always experience that love. We don't always experience that forgiveness, that grace, that compassion. And because we don't experience it ourselves, it's hard for us to then give it to others. But in Jesus, in God, we see the perfect example of what that looks like in our lives. So you want to live a life of compassion? You want to love others? Start by remembering what God has done for you. So now we say, "Okay, God, I remember what you've done. And because I know that the compassion that you have shown me is greater than I deserve. And God, if I'm to follow you, if I'm to model my life after you, now I need you to open my eyes and help me see how I need to be compassionate to other people. Open my eyes so that I can now begin to recognize the needs around me. Because we live in a world where every day we are going to encounter someone or something who needs compassion, who needs love, who needs forgiveness, who needs grace. So God, I need you to open up my eyes so that I can see that." And I think we all realize, we live in a community where we see a need. Huntington Beach, Orange County, there's a lot of wealth here. But at the same time, you can be walking down a really affluent neighborhood, nice homes, and then see a homeless guy on the street with 2 shopping carts and bags full of stuff sleeping. And I'll tell you, when I moved away in 2016 and to move back now, it's a lot worse now than it was when I left. I was stunned by that when I came back, just seeing the needs. And homelessness is just one aspect of that. Some statistics I came across this week in a study, a 2017 survey, showed that there are almost 5,000 people who are homeless in Orange County. Almost half of them, or not almost half of them, over half of them actually sleep somewhere that wasn't intended for shelter or that it's not inhabitable. That means they're sleeping on a street somewhere or on a park bench. So over half of the 5,000 people. And then the vast majority of those, they're either in Huntington Beach, Santa Ana, or Costa Mesa. All right here in our backyard. That's just one need that we see every day in our lives. But let's look even further than that. Another study in 2017 shows that 1 in every 5 people in California are living in poverty. So 20% of the state is living in poverty. But then let's break it down beyond that. Yeah, there are homeless people. Yeah, there are people in poverty and need. But you know what else there are? There are single moms who are coming out of abusive relationships, who don't know what true love is, who don't know what true compassion is. There are people that God puts in our lives every day who are difficult to deal with, who don't have a family here, who don't have someone to love them and show them God's love. Those are the people that we encounter every day. And sometimes it becomes easy because we get so stuck in our routine. We're like, well, I got to go to work. I got to take care of the kids. I've got to take care of something in my apartment. I've got to do all these things. So I don't really have time to do anything else. And when we begin to kind of have that mentality, it's easy for us to neglect the need that is right in front of us every day. It's easy for us to overlook it, but we cannot overlook the very need that God has put us in Huntington Beach, in Orange County in 2018. God has put us here to meet that need, and we can no longer overlook that. I want to read a verse that comes from the Gospel of Mark, and it's a story from Jesus' life. So I'm going to read this verse, and then I'm going to give you a little context to the story. It's in Mark 6:34. It says this: Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. So here's the context of this story. Jesus has been teaching all day. He's tired. He's been healing the sick. He's been ministering to people in need. And at this point, he's just trying to get away with his disciples to rest. There's not any of us who would fault him for wanting to do that. He says, you know what, I'm tired. I've been meeting the needs of people. But what happens? It says he sees the people. He has compassion on them, and he meets their needs. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of the disciples. They're probably following him around thinking, for the love of God, for the love of you, can you please just take a breath? We're so tired. We're exhausted. People are so needy. But what does Jesus do? He's faced with a choice there. He could go off and he could rest, and he would not be wrong for wanting to do that. But it says he saw their need. He what? He had compassion on them, and he went out to minister to them. And in the same way as Jesus does that, we're faced with that choice every day. You know, I believe that stories like that are in the Bible for this very reason. It's not just to give us a historical look at Jesus' life, but it's to give us a set of principles and a set of stories that we can now go to and say, you know, Jesus went through that. Well, the same thing happens to me every day. So if Jesus responded that way, well, I guess I should respond that way. And every day you're faced with that choice. What are you going to do? You're going to turn a blind eye? Are you going to be justified in saying, you know what, I just want to go home and rest. I'm tired. I've been working. I'm exhausted. Or are you going to say, okay, God, I recognize that there is a need around me. And because you first loved me, because you first showed me compassion, I'm now going to show that to other people. Ephesians chapter 1 says this: I ask God to make your eyes focused and clear so you can see exactly what it is that God is calling you to do. I want you to know that's my prayer for myself. That's my prayer for you. That God will open your eyes to see what he is calling you to do. So we recognize, God, you first showed me compassion. Now we've prayed and asked God to open our eyes and reveal to us the need that's around us that sometimes we turn a blind eye to, that we're numb to. But now it's where the rubber meets the road. Now it's where we have to go from saying, God, show me what's going on, to, God, what can I now do to meet this need? Because I want you to know, if you don't actually take action, you're not showing compassion. Compassion is not just something you can think in your mind. It's something you have to do something about. In James chapter 2, now just to preface this and say this, most scholars now believe that the book of James was written by Jesus' brother. So here you're going to see what James says. Now this is someone, if this is Jesus' brother, it means he had an intimate knowledge of Jesus. He was there. He knew what Jesus was all about. He knew Jesus' ministry. And here's what he says. He says, what good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye and have a good day, stay warm and eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and it is useless. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. The more you get to know me, the more you're going to realize, like, I'm a type A personality. I'm a direct person. I tell it like it is, sometimes with absolutely no tact. But I'm just like, listen, here's how it is. And I think maybe that's why I like this verse, because in this verse, James, he's not pulling any punches. He's going straight to the gut, and he tells you, if you don't put action to your compassion, if you just think these things in your head and then don't ever do anything about it, your faith is dead. It's dead. It's non-existent. It is useless. That's harsh, that's direct, but it's true. And I love that. Well, okay, so crap, I guess I'm going to have to do something about it now. So what do we do? Well, one of the things you hear us talk about all the time here, and I know I've heard Jeremy say this numerous times listening on YouTube, There are 3 ways that you can begin to put action to your compassion: your time, your talent, and your treasure. There are a lot of people that say, well, you know what, I don't have money. Well, that's okay. You have time. Every one of us, if we're honest, we could spare 2 or 3 hours a week. So what if instead of taking those 2 or 3 hours and going home and binge watching a show on Netflix or Hulu, what if you took those 2 or 3 hours and you went and you served at a soup kitchen? You served at a homeless shelter. You served as a big brother or a big sister with an organization with kids who need a positive influence in their life. What kind of a difference would that make? Some people, you say, well, I don't know what to do. But God has given you an incredible gift. He's given you a talent where you are really strong administratively. You can organize things. You can pull things together. You can pull people together and pull events off. Well, use that gift. Use your talent that God has given you. Pull something together, something that's going to make a difference in our community. And then honestly, there are some of you in this room who God has blessed you financially. And you're faced with that same choice. Well, I can take care of myself. I can take care of my family. And I want to be really clear here. There is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your family. But what are you going to do? Are you going to be selfish with what God has given you? Are you going to be generous? Are you going to be open-handed and realize that everything God has given you belongs to Him? And what you do with it is a reflection of where your heart is. So are you going to honor God with your finances? Are you going to invest in things that have an eternal difference? You going to invest your time in things that have an eternal difference? Or are you going to invest your talent in things that have an eternal difference? So let's not just say we want to show compassion. Let's not just say that we want to love people. Let's do something about it. Like I said, that's where the rubber meets the road. And I want to say something really quick here. And I'm not going to try to offend anybody. But you want to know, a lot of times, it really, really frustrates me. I've been a Christian my entire life. I grew up in the Bible Belt, in the buckle of the Bible Belt in the South. And you want to know what the common response is from Christians when they see a need? Well, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you. I'm thinking about you. I hope things work out. I'm here to tell you, is it right to pray? Yes, absolutely, we should pray. Is it right to think good thoughts? Yes. But you know what? If you don't put anything to those prayers and those good thoughts, chances are nothing's going to happen. And here's why I say that. You want to know how God works miracles? You want to know how God works on this earth? God's not some genie in a bottle that we rub the magic lamp and He's like, all right, you got 3 wishes. Oh, God, my friend Jim over here, he's struggling paying his bills. So I'm going to rub this lamp, and my first wish is that Jim now has $150,000 in his bank account. And God just snaps His fingers and it happens. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You want to know how God performs miracles on this earth? He performs miracles through each and every one of you, where instead of saying, hey, you know what? I'm praying about you. I know that you're struggling to pay the bills. I know your electricity is about to get turned off, but I'm praying for you. You want to know how God changes those situations where you say, you know what? I'm praying for you, and I'm going to go pay your electric bill. Hey, I know that you've got kids and you don't have any food on your table, but I'm thinking good thoughts about you. No. I'm praying for you, and I'm going to go to the freaking grocery store, and I'm going to buy you some groceries. That's how God works. God has put each and every one of us here to be His miracle workers, to be His hands, to be His feet. So I encourage you, don't just say it. Don't just think it. Do something about it. I'm going to bring us to a close on this. So Gary, am I doing okay? Am I going over 17 minutes? But I want you to remember, I want you to remember this, what I said earlier. Compassion, love, acceptance, grace. It's not a one-time event. It's a lifestyle that we are called to live. And you know what that lifestyle is? It's counterculture to what society tells us. Because society tells us, live for yourself. Pursue your selfish desires. Pursue those things that are going to better your situation. But compassion, love, grace, acceptance, they're the opposite of that. Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4 say this: don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble. Thinking of others is better than yourselves. Don't only look out for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. Now, this verse, it tells us not only don't be selfish, but it warns us that we shouldn't try to impress others. And I do want to say this really quick. This is just kind of a warning. Oftentimes, we can serve, we can do good in people's lives, but our heart and our motives aren't exactly in the right place. And I think that's what he's warning about, because there can be times where he can say, oh man, I went on a serve event. I picked up all this trash. I fed a homeless person. I helped a family in need. Didn't I do so good? And we begin to love that adulation and those words that people say, oh, you're so awesome. You did that. And it fills our heads and we think, oh, that feels good. That makes me feel good. So I'm going to go help these people again. And not so much because it helps them, but because it makes me feel good when people praise me. So you have to be careful about that. Because if you serve when there's only something in it for you, your actions become selfish, and that is contrary to the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's contrary to the model that Jesus calls us to live. Because in him, we see how we're to show true compassion. Instead of a self-serving life, we see self-sacrifice. Instead of self-centeredness, we see other-centeredness. So I leave you with this. What would our world look like? What would our city look like? What would our county look like? What would Southern California look like if instead of saying these things, we did them? Instead of living self-centered lives, we lived other-centered lives. If instead of showing limited compassion in just occasional serving acts, what if we actually lived that out every day of our lives? What if instead of being tight-fisted, we showed compassion and know that you can't outgive God? You can't outgive God. What if instead of serving ourselves and our own needs, we served people, we showed compassion? What if we realize, well, you know what, instead of always being by myself and doing my own thing, what if I invite someone else into my life and invest in them? What if instead of always telling people all the things that they do wrong, all the ways that they disappoint us, all the ways that they need to change, what if we let them know that we loved them? We're not against them, we're for them. We're for love. We're for unconditional acceptance. And what if instead of just keeping God's compassion and love to ourselves, we go out and we find people to show that to? And when we do all those things, you know what's going to happen? We're going to grow, we're going to change, and we're going to become true followers of Jesus. Because remember what I said, if you aren't following Jesus, you're not a follower of Jesus. You're not. My favorite verse in the Bible, I end with this, I promise. I think this is the third ending I've given you. I end with this. It comes from Ephesians 3:20, and it says, now all glory to God, who by his mighty power at work within us is able to accomplish infinitely more than we could ever ask or imagine. I'm here to tell you, I know Jeremy, I know myself, I know some other people in this room. We are big dreamers. We have big dreams, big plans, big ambitions, big goals. And if you believe God's word to be true, where God's word says, if you allow God to work in you, if you truly follow Christ, if you truly model your life after him, then he can accomplish infinitely more than you could ever ask or imagine. And I know the big things I can ask, and if God can accomplish infinitely more than that, then I know this. Whenever you and you and you and you and you and all of us together live this lifestyle, we pour our heart into it and we say, God, we're going to be loving, we're going to be compassionate, we're going to be accepting, we're going to be forgiving, and we are going to live this lifestyle that allows you to work through us to change this world. There is nothing that we can't accomplish. This city can change, this county can change, Southern California can change with the goodness of the gospel of Jesus Christ, because he can accomplish infinitely more than we could ask or imagine. So let's do that. Let's follow Jesus. Let's not just say it with our words. Let's live it with our actions. Will you bow your heads and pray with this prayer for me? God, I do not live these words that I say. God, too often, I say I want to help others, but I'd rather help myself. I say I want to show compassion to others, but then they make me mad, and I no longer want to show them compassion. But God, I believe if we're going to see this world change, and we live in a world right now that is divided, that's broken, that's hurting, that's ugly, and the only hope is your love. And God, if they're ever going to see that, it's got to be me living it out through my actions, not just my words. So God, I ask you to forgive me. Forgive me of living in a way that is contrary to your best. God, I pray for myself and every person in this room, Lord, that we no longer just say it, but we do it. God, I pray that you use us in a powerful way to make a difference in people's lives. Open up our eyes to the needs that are around us each and every day. Give us the courage to step out and be the voice for the voiceless. Give us, God, the courage to step out and support those who need support. God, we surrender ourselves to you. We surrender our lives to you. And we ask that you use us to change people for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.